Hey, this is Regina's Rabbit Hole, and today I want to say, doggone it, my dog is dying. Yeah, really creepy, right? Sucks. So, in a world where I barely go to the doctors or don't want to, I find myself taking my dog. And we found out that Benjamin is slowly passing away. Yep. And I was thinking about something that I've been going through. It's just kind of difficult. Now, there's some dynamics here that I think can be very helpful when it comes to metaphors and looking at macro, micro aspects of things. Now, let me see if I can keep track of them. If I don't, I'm sure you will. As far as numbering them. 1. I met this dog over a woman's house, and the dog was drawn to me, and it seemed sad. And almost instantly, after a few times, and the dog coming over to me, I realized that it was sad and something wasn't right. And I offered to take the dog. Also, she suggested that the house wasn't a good place for the dog, and there were other bigger dogs and other people living there, and, it wasn't the right situation. To make a long story short, the dog wasn't being treated right, and the dog had problems that I wasn't aware of, but I took the dog home. So I saved the dog from one situation and brought it home into my situation. So sometimes we think we're saving something. I'm not one of those dog owners that, I have dogs and I take it to the groomers and I have licensing and, used to the idea of ownership of a thing and following the laws of the land in order to assure that that thing in which I own, that I took ownership of, is okay according to what society has set up. So that's another dynamic. So in real life, you just want to save something and you like something. You think it's a good idea. So I brought the dog home. The dog's name was Benji. I brought it home and named him Benjamin. I also brought him home for my own reasons. There's some stuff going on at home, and the added distraction of the dog kind of softened some teenagers going through puberty and some friction that was going on at home. It was a nice distraction. I was aware of that. This other stuff about ownership and licensing and grooming the dog and what the dog had versus what the dog didn't have for shots and all that stuff didn't even come into the equation. Just going with the flow, doing a good thing. Bam. Now, fast forward to today. Those are a couple of dynamics that I named. There's 3 different ones in there, Okay? So fast forward to today. Of course, we fell in love with the dog, right? It's our family dog now. And we learned some lessons along the way that I will backtrack and let you know probably later on.
You give up?
With Benjamin. So Benjamin's a little superhero. The little emotional pillow.
It got you.
The thing that you pay attention to that rolls through. Like in the movies when all chaos is happening, there's the comic scene. Something weird happens, like maybe a unicorn will fly through, or a baby, or a tumbleweed. Something that everybody freezes and they stop. Maybe I've even seen people take a selfie, of the fight, and everybody stops what they're doing, and then they go back. Well, that's kind of what the dog, what Benjamin was. That thing that you love, that's odd, that you just stop. Isn't that the magic of some things? Anyway, Benjamin is sick. Benjamin has cancer. Benjamin is bleeding from his mouth, bleeding all over the house. Benjamin is a dying thing. He's not just a thing, he's my dog. And you watch the different responses and stuff, which is another dynamic that I am really feeling. Now, my dog loves me, and I watch Benjamin go through so many different things over the years of us having him. Like, I learned that why you should take a dog to the vet other than because it's the law and people said so. You want to make sure your dog is okay. There's things that can happen to a little doggy. Things that I never knew of before. I never researched that. That wasn't my arena to own a dog and to know about these things. Like, I had pets and stuff when I was a child, but it didn't last. So I never really was initiated into the pet ownership stuff where you do it the right way. I wanted to, but just never quite. There was always some tragedy. Anyway, never mind that. Back to Benjamin. Yeah, Benjamin is sick right now. And that was just horrible, the things that go through your mind that you think of. I was thinking of these birds, but we can't go there right now, so I'm going to move forward. Yeah, Benjamin. It's hard to watch him go through this. And I am going through the whole range of emotions that you would do with the death thing. Watching my children go through it, the denial, the anger, the blame, and then there's just a part of you that just wants that thing to be put out of its misery. I said a long time ago in one of my videos, if a dying dog is screaming, or if a dying thing is screaming, you just want to put out of its misery. And it's just human nature. My dog is coughing and making all these really gross noises, and he's suffering. And I didn't have the cash to put him to sleep. And all the figuring out, bringing him, to get groomed, get his little toes clipped, to get his shots so that, if something happens where he bites somebody or scratches somebody or needs treatment, that they don't get rabies, And this whole thing is a giant industry, and I was thinking of, the medical industry, and how that is a whole good and bad principles, okay? Negative and positive principles, for lack of better words. You really got to watch that industry and what they'll say. Because a lot of times they design a whole environment to reinforce things that make it very lucrative for them. And so they capitalize on the ignorance of others and are entrapped by their own greed, hence their own ignorance, and end up getting choked on it when you wonder why the healthcare system is so overloaded. Perhaps it's because there's no real remedy, because people are gorging on profits from medications and procedures that don't benefit, that don't make sense. I got one enemy. That's anything that doesn't make any sense. And so that brings you a lot of enemies, even yourself at times, when you realize that you yourself can be with the things that don't make any sense, and you need to analyze and redo. Back to Benjamin. All this stuff came up thinking about Benjamin. Not having the finances, it's a little expensive to get your dog put down. I don't have that kind of cash around. I love my dog. But he's lucky that he has food and a nice, comfortable place to be, and just to be. Very happy just to be, but all those other things are a strain. They become a strain. But it's not like I went out to seek a dog, knowing that not being responsible for the strain, I was helping the dog. And so you come into these weird issues when you go and you ask the Humane Society, or you go and ask the office of these veterinarians, can they help you for the care of a dog that you saved from a bad situation? When you go to follow the rules and there's nothing there to really help you in your little town, some places make allowances and little things and stuff like that for animals. I really appreciate these places that think of things like this. Doggy credit and, people, sponsorships and stuff for when things like this happen. Oh, well, that thought just maybe I could go online and see if I can get a sponsor. But I don't know how long that'll take. So anyway, in the meantime, Benjamin's running around. We're making phone calls to the vet, and they're like, you don't got the cash. We're not doing it. I'm like, well, what about saying that you care about animals and that you want to be humane? What about how you'll send out a fleet of little soldiers to go find people and arrest people and take people's animals away because they're not treating their pets right? Perhaps even people like myself, my dog was threatened to be taken from me, and I was fined because he didn't have shots. But I was told from the previous owner that it had shots, but I didn't have the papers. I was just trying to save the dog. I got wrapped up in that and fined with that. Well, I had to go to court for that. Luckily, they threw it out, but, there was the police and stuff. That was a little nuts. I just wanted to love something that something else wasn't, but I didn't know that it wasn't going to be that simple. Do you see how this can transpire into real life, other life situations? When you go to intercede and help and save something, it becomes complicated. It takes on a life of its own, like words given a frequency, given a tone, like a catchphrase. What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? Oh, what's up? The tone. How one thing can take on a whole nother frequency when it becomes alive and it's put into a different setting with different intent behind it. What is it to be humane and have these things set up? Medical, media sign, hospitals, hospice. Don't even get into the words and stuff like that. It doesn't even equate to therapeutic and holistic and whole. It breaks down to a dead thing. It breaks down to a lie, because in your mind, in our minds, we think we're going to get something good. But even the words, when you look at the etymology and ciphering, break down to something that's the total opposite. And so I have this little doggy, and I'm carrying around something, this projection of shame that these people are trying to put on me as a bad pet owner, when that's not what I am, or perhaps it is from their perception. But I think that's kind of warped, which is kind of funny when you look at the way it's phrased, because they're looking at me cockeyed. They're looking at me from their perception, so it's warped. And I'm saying, that's warped. That's a really weird, crooked perception. You said you were there. It's the humane. You're supposed to be holistic, aren't you? You're there to help the dogs. Have a peaceful time on this earth. Make plenty of laws and justifications for the things that they do. And the perimeters that are set up, that some people take very seriously when it comes to the ownerships and licensing and things. And I respect that. I want to respect that. I was learning to respect that until my dog got sick and I didn't have the funds, and asked them, can you please help me to put my dog down? He's suffering. He's bleeding all over the house. He's choking. He's got these big clots and stuff like that. It's very painful to watch. And they want the cash. Got to go through some paperwork to get help to see if we can get some assistance. Right, that's already done. I'm emotional about this. So for a few weeks now, I've been watching my little Benjamin suffer. No longer wants to sit in the sunlight and let the light heal him. Sometimes he goes outside, but he's in shadow a lot more. So looking at the transition of death. Now there's some other things here. The transition of death and how they charge. They talk about life and how you're supposed to promote life and health. Even the health care, to be fined because your children don't have health care, and then to be subject to a certain type of health care, to certain types of treatment and doctors, to a certain perimeter of economics, status where you're going to get a certain kind of treatment, standard. Some of these doctors barely want to look at you, let alone touch you, because they're used to dealing with a certain social dynamic, and they're taught that it's okay to do that. I went from a child who had to get butt naked when you went to the doctor and they gave you the cloth gown, to the cloth gown turned to the paper gown. And then the paper gown turned to just put this over your lap, or over, just take your shirt off and put this. It was like newspaper. It wasn't even the soft paper, cloth kind of paper. It was now a noisy, like a tissue paper you could blow your nose on, that you had over top of your chest. To, don't take anything off. I'm barely going to look at you. Look at my clipboard, ask you a few questions. And you're lucky if the nurse came in to check your ears and your nose and your throat. I watched the dwindling of the actual interaction where you felt like a human being when you sat down. And to notice the difference is ignorance bliss? Is it better not to have experienced that at all? I went from the thermometer being the mercury thermometer and sticking it into your bootay with the Vaseline and everything when you were little, to bringing my child, my firstborn, 30, her in there and having it done to her, to watching it change to the electric meter. And now we're finding out what about electronics and stuff, and we're putting that where? I don't know. I'm just saying research still needs to be done on some of these things. But anyway, holistic. I'm watching a transition of what all this yada 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 about life and healthcare and how you better have it for your children, you better have it for you. We got the best, and this is a perimeter, and you're subject to it. You're locked in and ready to load into the prescription arena so they can capitalize on that. And whatever you eat and whatever issue you have, whatever career, you're subject to a certain amount of injuries or whatever. If you're a soldier, maybe it's a gunshot. If you're an athlete, it's going to be, you know what I'm saying, some muscle tissues and stuff, some breaks, maybe some fractures or whatever. If you're in sports or something, or martial arts, you know. Perhaps if you're into machinery and stuff, you know, it might be a finger or something, you know. If you work near cell towers, it might be, or live near them, perhaps it's the cancer cell. Okay, so there's different arenas and stuff that we're falling into, that are being, because of sociology and how we can break down the different dynamics of society, it's very easy to become a subject in a Petri just due to certain social dynamics when it comes to looking at this health, promoting life, wanting people to feel better about living and things. Because we're talking about Benjamin, but equating it to how I can see these things transpire into real life. So Benjamin is still in this predicament, and I'm waiting for a phone call so that I can put him down. And then don't think about the urn. You don't get none of this pretty stuff under these circumstances. You're lucky if you get someone to even help. So I'm lucky we're going to get a discount, hopefully. We'll be able to put him out of his misery, you know. And I'm so thankful that I had the interaction with Benjamin, and that I learned some of these lessons through this dynamic, through watching him. Now, this is another dynamic. Watching Benjamin and off the healthcare thing. Holistic. Back to our natural things. Now, this is a being, a little light code, a little being inside a little carbon body. It happens to be what we call a dog. And he's got all these different frequencies that he shares with us as a family. You know, growling at his bone, humping his pillow, chasing out his shadow, sitting in the sun, chasing the light. He has a very smart, and he has a different relationship with everyone in the house. So it shows his character and his personality. What we call a dog has so many different dimensions to it. It's a being Just like a person, like we're not carbon copies of each other. Even this thing that a lot of us disrespect, a simple dog, showed the spectrum of color, a character when it came to just being. And he still is, you know? And that's what I want to talk about now. Benjamin went from sitting in the sun, and like he went through so many different problems over the years. These last, caught him in his last years. He's an old dog. It's like 10. I think he was 7 or 8 when we got him. And so I had him for a little over 2 years. And he would have a problem with his leg, or like he would totally look like he was on the on his way out, and he was having problems, start shaking and stuff. He would go sit in the sun, he'd be fine, drink his little water, sit in the sun. And it was weird watching how his bounce back every time, and watching how intelligent he is, where he naturally knew where to go, you see. Or we're going equating, like I don't like to go to the doctors. I naturally, let's listen to my ancestors and try to follow that route. That's kind of make me a little scared now, you know what I'm saying, in lieu of all the things going on. And where are they allowed to say that I can trust them, that I can really trust you? You don't even want to look at me, so your credentials ain't enough to me anymore, in lieu of what's been going on, you know. So you want to have the hope and the cure, and especially when you need a doctor, shoot. But you want to make sure that he at least looks at you like a human being, that he can at least look at you, right? So anyway, yeah, Benjamin wasn't able to do that anymore. So instead of looking for the sun, he started gravitating toward me. So do we look for love when our end days come? I saw a post on the internet recently about when people die, they don't look for things, they look for people. They look for other people. They look for the people they love. They don't look for the shiny bauble, I don't think. They look for people that they respect and admire, or things that they want to, what do you call it, closure or something, right? So this dog being a little light being, and me aware of the different spectrums of feeling and stuff, that different emotions, and the span of lessons that the dog, Benjamin, has been giving me since I met him on his latter part of days. Calling myself saving him, but he already lived that long through whatever. And you could tell somebody messed with him because he was broken. His leg was not, his like crooked, looked like somebody like kicked him down the stairs or did something to him at one point, and it didn't heal right. So, and he had this trauma thing with the stairs. It took him a long time to get over, that everybody noticed. That, after about a year, he knew that he could trust us, not to be kicked down the stairs. And you could tell. Confirmed by everybody of the difference between the way that he was behaving. So anyway, instead of Benjamin going into the sun, I noticed he started gravitating toward me. Now I know dogs feel the loyalty thing. My daughter, she usually takes care of him and stuff. Like they give him, a lot of times they give him bath, and one of my daughters feeds him almost every day. But Benjamin is still more connected to me than he is to them. I even left the house and came back at one time, and the dog is still partial to me more than anything. And so I was trying to I was looking into that, but I'm not a dog, so I don't really know how they frequency code locks in, but it seems like some kind of weird embedding that they do, I'm curious about that. That's just a little side note. Them with smells and all, and how they tag everything, and how that smell is a central thing to dogs and stuff. Like when they make you their essential thing, when they sniff you out and make you their center of attention. That one person that they're loyal to, no matter what. I mean, it could be many people, but there's that one person, you know? And then there's the equation between the dog having other owners and stuff and being mistreated and stuff and gravitating toward me when I went to visit. I met it over someone else's house where it was owned. But it wanted me. But that just, it knowing, it honed in on something in me. Something that we are all trying to understand. Something in us, a magnetic, a frequency that we embed, we tag, we anchor on to certain aspects or things in each other. Like it's not even, it has to be said. Just sometimes we know. How did Benjamin know that I would take it home? Was it just hoping? Did it do that with everybody that came in the house that seemed kind? I don't know. I will never know that. But I know that I love him. And we have a little bit of history. And doggy is sick. And now that he's sick, he's glued to me. Like the freaking moon and the sun. He doesn't want to leave, and he's coughing and choking and gagging. I'm trying to get him help. He doesn't want to leave my room, and he's choking and stuff at night. So I'm sleeping with a dog that's dying in my presence, as if I am the sun. I'm a healer and I'm empathic, and I got these different, I feel like an open porthole, and my doggy is not well, and I'm feeling this, and I'm checking myself, and I'm pushing past my own feelings and emotions, and I wonder how hospice workers, you gotta be special, or you'd have to be cruel. Looking at the poll on that and some of the abusive situations I've seen, people prey on the weakness of others. One aspect of it is asking for money, saying that you're humane, instead of helping to put that thing that's being treated inhumane by circumstance out of its misery would be the action to say that you love. Not the words to say you love, give me the cash. And we do these things in real life with people and the way that we interact with each other. And that's why I was making that equation and caught that when I asked for the help and saw some of the, negative responses and stuff that, with people who walk around with our chest poked out because we follow the rules and stuff of the licensing of the owner of things, pets and things like that. And you have doggy shows and all kinds of stuff. But then the situation like this was, I was treated like I should have some shame. Like I had to actually explain the predicament of my dog prior to and now. I mean, I guess, pleading my case like it wasn't me. And I'm just learning. But see here, look, it still ain't right. So I'm checking myself. I wake up in the middle of the night. And the dog is right under my foot. He's not in the pallet that I put down for him where he can cough and choke and bleed on that pallet. And that I'm dealing with it at all. And that I'm not isolating myself. I don't want to put my dog in the basement by himself to pass away. I know that he's a light code being. It's not his fault he has to wait. And who am I to put him down anyway and put myself out of the misery of watching? Thinking about hospice and stuff like that. It's more humane to help the thing and give it aid, right? And stop the suffering. So, if you can hear, this is where I'm start spinning. That I've been stuck in this situation for weeks now. Dealing with this emotional stuff with my dog where I want to be there and I love him. But then the inner, greater, the more primistic part of me that has a limit to this frequency of something dying and suffering, and I can't help it, wants to push it away from my sight, wants to act like it doesn't exist, even though it does, wants to not deal with the pain, even though this dog did not ask for the pain that it's in, and it's just being. It's just time. And it shouldn't be treated cruel. And yes, it's a dog. It's also energy inside of the dog that will become a part of our canopy. How we treat each other and what we tolerate. And that's the reason why I didn't just take my dog and stick him in the basement and try to pretend that he's not going through what he's going through while the paperwork goes through. He's scared. He's lonely. And obviously I'm his sun or his moon or whatever. He loves me. And he gravitates towards me. He's clinging to me during his last times. And there's times when he's sleeping at night. I don't know if he's going to wake up. I wish he wouldn't. But he does. He gets up, making those sounds and noises and stuff as he did through the night. And the other night I went to stand up and he was right under my foot. He wasn't where he was supposed to be. And that was it, gosh darn it. I kicked him out my room and I put him downstairs until in the morning time, and I felt so guilty. But then it was the risk of stepping on him because he wants to be right up underneath me. And then smelling the death coming from the dog. I'm dealing with that. A frequency is a frequency. I'm going to respond to that frequency. Even you could put gardenias on it and where they put carnations or whatever else. It's still death. Dog is still dying. I can still see it. And I'm helpless right now until I get some assistance for Benjamin. And the thoughts that go through your mind. Do you want to see something that's dying suffer longer? Or do you want to just see it die? Because how you're feeling, as well as how you know it's feeling, and perhaps you feel powerless, and how these dynamics are played out metaphorically in other arenas where we see things dying, we see things not working, we see things that are unhumane, that are not right, that are twisted. We have a bird's eye view of people's warped perceptions, yet it's reinforced by other people with the same types of perceptions, so we're unable to change things due to circumstances. Perhaps you might be the moon for something dying, struggling. Perhaps you're somebody's freaking lifesaver. And they're like grabbing onto you. Reminds me of a scene into Titanic, but I have to remember that's the programming. It's the programming. I have to remember I'm here to be what I was called here to be. The doggy gravitated toward me. Whoopee, huh? You lucky me. So what can I see? How can I be the best I can be through the situation and have victory? Let's see. This odd, really stinky, nasty situation. Yuck. It's going to do what it do. The evil mini-me in my mind says. Or maybe it's the evil other me's in life said, shoot, you can, since they want to be like that with the dog, go do the old one too. Help the dog out, and what can you find to put the dog to sleep yourself? But see, if you go do that your way and you go dig a hole, do you know that you can be fined and stuff like that? You can get in trouble for doing that. But not in the people denying you when you ask for the help to put the dog down. But that's not their fault. That's the way the system is set up. Like Caesar. Like Pontius Pilate. That's what I mean. He washes his hands. Yeah. A system set up to reinforce itself, so it's not your responsibility. It's not, it ain't my fault. It ain't my fault. What is my fault? Where is my responsibility? Is it my responsibility? What would you do? Would you get something to help your dog go peacefully into that great night and then dig a hole and hope nobody mess with you about it? Or would you peacefully wait until the paperwork is processed, hoping that they give you the opportunity to help you with the dog, and do the C, which is the system wanted you to beat yourself up because you couldn't actually afford the dog. So now you're in the naughty pet ownership department. You're a degenerate. For those who follow the rules. What the heck are you doing with the dog in the first place, dude? You know? Why don't you just bring it down to the place? Well, I'm telling you why I don't just bring the dog down to the place now. And I've already told you where I got the dog from. It was being mistreated. Yep. So that's the story of Benjamin, up to date. It's raining. He's up underneath me a lot, and it's hard to watch him suffer. So that I find myself getting angry because he's suffering, and just the tones and frequencies of what he's going through are just so gross. Watching stuff come out of somebody's mouth, and that's why I was thinking of hospice. The choking and the farting and the whole thing that goes on when something is dying. Don't get me started with how we put dead stuff in our bodies and we eat it, and how there's similar responses that happen. Maybe that's why they call it dead food. I don't know. But there's a lot going on that I've been sitting with this death tone, going through this, and love, thinking about how stuff is not equating with the way things are set up, and how sometimes it is what it is. It just is. It's going to be what it be, and you got to kind of like just float through it. Bottom line is, I just want to be the best human I can be and help my dog get through his transition. And be honest about it. This is his contribution, are the dynamics that I received through his frequency in his little doggy years. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, this is Regina's Rabbit Hole. And, yeah, odd one. I do shadow work, y'all. You know, this is part of the processing that needs to be done. You can take these equations and do what you like with them, take what you need, and leave the rest. Respect. And much love to you and yours. I'm out. I'm out with Siren Buddha Medicine. Much love to you and yours.